Hi everyone, today a tutorial on the fisherman's rib. In order to understand this stitch, I will tell you something about how and why it's knitted like it's knitted. So when you have to frog it or something else, you will know what to do and why you have to do it that way. Actually, when you look at it, it almost looks like a rib stitch. This is a rib stitch. So a knit one and a purl one. And when you look at the fisherman's rib, it's also a knit and a purl one, but it's more fluffier and smooshy. And it is a very excellent stitch for scarves. It drapes beautifully on, and the stitches are the same on both sides. It's almost like it's three-dimensional. So it's very comfortable and warm. When you knit the fisherman's stitch or fisherman's rib stitch on the loom, actually you do a garter stitch method. When you knit it on the needles, there are three methods, and you use a knit below and a yarn over to create the stitch. Actually, you make a double stitch, the stitch itself and a hidden float, and that float you create with a yarn in front, and after that you knit them like I knit together in the next row. Like I said, actually you knit 2 rows to create 1 stitch, but in 1 row you don't knit the knits, and in the other row you don't knit the purls, but you do a yarn in front on those pegs, either the knits or the purls. You create a kind of yarn over, which is necessary for this stitch. You can take advantage of the garter stitch method to create a clean edge. So in the purl rows, you need a purl on both sides. I have made a kind of scarf over here, and this stitch is a even stitch because it's a combination of a knit and a purl. But in order to get the same edges, I cast it on an odd amount, and these edge stitches don't have a yarn in front. They're just plain knitted, and as you can see, you create a kind of clean edge by it. So that's also a possibility which you can think of when you are going to knit a scarf. When you look in the videos, it looks quite simple, but in real life you will meet some things, and then you are looking at it and think, okay, how I'm going to mend it or repair it, or do I have to frog the whole project? There are some simple tricks which I will show you in this video, so you can mend a drop stitch or put it back on the loom while you see you have done something halfway the scarf. Okay, when you knit this stitch, I'm knitting my knits from the left to the right and my purls from the right to the left. I've marked them, the purls, so hopefully it helps me to knit it the right way. So I'm starting just with a plain knit stitch, and I will knit to the middle of the row now. Okay, phone rings and I come back and I think, okay, which way was I knitting? I can't see it clearly. So what I do, I will put the loom like this. Just lift the stitch I have knitted, and then you see here's the float, and you see the working yarn is in the middle of either the knit stitch or the V shape and a float. And you put them back on the loom like this. You see where your working yarn is, and you just put it back on the loom like this, or with your hook. And as you can see, it's going to the left, and you were knitting in that direction, so I know it's my knit direction. So I know in which direction I have to knit now. So this row won't be a short row. Every now and then it's okay to check your scarf or other project. And not only on the wrong side, which is the side you're looking at, but also the other side. I accidentally made a mistake over here, and this happens when you accidentally don't make a yarn in front. So like this, the one was behind, and you just knit this one. Now you can do two things. You can either leave it on the loom, you can also grab a circular needle, and to get some more space you put the stitches on the circular needle. It's better for the tension. I'm working on the other side now. Okay, and this is where you see, you're always looking at it from the V-shape side. That's the easiest way to mend it. Okay, put the stitches on the plastic of the circular needle, put it away, and this is where you have to lift the stitch off, and you just nice and gently go back to the spot where you forgot to do the yarn over. Just nice and gently, and watch what's happening. And it will, when you have yarn like this, be together somehow, and you just pull okay. Now this is what is happening. I will try to get close to the camera. Now, and like I told you, this stitch is made out of 2 rows. You can see it over here. This is the knitted stitch, and this is the floater, which belong together to create that fisherman's rib. So you have to knit that back the same way. So you grab that floater, you just look, you see this is the stitch and the float from this. So you go to the next two. This is your float and this is your stitch. Don't make it twist. Now, so every time you have to grab, and you can check it if you have done it the right way. Is it appearing like it does over here? So this is the float and this is the, oops, have to, okay, so this is the new created stitch, and now we're almost at the loom again, or at the back. So you skip one and you knit one. I'm doing it like this now because of the camera. So, and this is how you, oh, have to have that one too. And you put it back on the loom. Just watch out you don't make a twisted stitch. Okay, and you put it back on the loom. Now, as you can see, you've mended. You can check the other side too. Here is the stitch. And at this moment, you see it's kind of loopy, but that will disappear when you put back those stitches. And after you have knitted a while, you just pull a bit at it, so the tension will reappear. Okay, knit on. And then we have to put back those stitches on. I just locked my circular needle. Now also on this needle you see a knit stitch and another stitch which has the yarn over. So you're going to put it back like it appears, a knit stitch, and the one with a yarn in front. And this is tricky. Yeah, just have to look if it's, so you have to watch closely. This is the hole you have to put back on the loom, and with a video in front of you that's not that easy. In real life it will. Okay. And this is the last one, and you're going to check. In this row, the purl packs have the yarn in front, and you see this one does not have that. So we are going to make the one again. And this is where the other one is. So you pull it back on the loom and you just are going to look if every stitch is put it back on the right way. Just watch. And so you continue your knit work. And of course, in the beginning, you might want to check every row if you have knitted a knit row. All the purl packs have a yarn in front and the other way around, of course. And like I said, sometimes you forget the yarn over and then you look, and this is a purl pack. You are going to search for the ladder that is in between the two knit stitches. So, and you pull it over. So you have 2 stitches on the loom. Sometimes it's a lot easier. You don't have to frog it with the circular needle, but you have to knit back 2 or more rows. Okay, you know your edges are just a knit stitch. And this is the one with just a knit stitch, but when you put it back, you have to put the floater back and the stitch. So you get 2 stitches. And this is what happens. Your yarn in front will go to the purl pack, and this is the one you don't have to put back because it's already knitted. So you just have to put back all the purl stitches with the floater. You don't have to do this one because that was the one with the yarn in front. Just look and put it back. If you want to be more secure, you just watch what's happening and you put it back. So now we're putting back all the purl stitches. And this is the one that's plain knitted. Pull, pull, just nice and gently. Grab the stitch, put it back. Take care it's not twisted. And now we are going to do it with the knit stitches. If necessary, you have to frog another row or knit back another row. So you know, this is the one with the 2 on the loom. Just look at it. This is, you can do it this way too. You put your hook into it, you unravel it and put it back. So just like you knit the row with the yarn in front and you purl a row with the yarn in front on the knit pack, you just do the same with frogging it. So you grab it, pull at it, and this is where you see where your stitch appears, and you put it back on the loom. This is the one. You don't have to frog in this row. And here, the one you half the frog. You pull the stitch, you put it on the hook, watch what's happening, and you put it back. You don't have to frog this one. There are a few ways of doing it. Just pull a bit, watch closely, take the whole stitch and not part of it, otherwise you will see that. So don't grab the yarn of the stitch and you put it back. So this is also a way of doing it, so you don't have to put it on a circular needle. The way with a circular needle is only necessary when you have to do more than 10 rows, but this way you can do when you only have to frog 3 rows. And as you can see, it's tangled now. You just pull nice and gently. This is where it's happening, so you just take them apart, find the center of the stitch, and whoops, yarn must be here. Just secure it if necessary and put the stitch back on. And as you can see, I frogged too much over here, and I can see that because when I would frog this one, I'm going that way. So I'll ink my row, and now I have just frogged 2 rows, and if necessary you do more rows. And the edges have 1 stitch, the purls have 1 stitch, the knits have 2. You just check that if you have put them back on the right way. And now I'm having my working yarn on the left side. I know I was knitting the knit stitch from the left side, so I continue knitting. And as usual, all the knits have 2 stitches on it. So the same goes when you working yarn would be from the right side, then all the purls would have 2 stitches and a knit 1. But when you are going to practice this stitch, you will learn how to look at it, and if you know some more about the stitch, you will successfully learn how to frog it or knit back, so then it isn't that hard to learn the stitch. Then the frogging part. You know, it's alternately a knit row and a purl row, and that is where you have the advantage of not your knit row and your purl row. There will be a kind of difference in gauge. So when you're not putting it back the right way on the loom, you might continue knitting your purls and they become your knits. So you are going to see that. To prevent that is, I'm going to frog a lot of this now. And I'm marking my wrong side. That is the side you're looking at. So I know how to put it back on the loom. Get the stitches off. And we're just going to pull at it. And this is where you see how the edge is looking when you do a garter stitch edge. Now I'm going to frog it to this point. Just pull nice and gently. And of course you can put some lifelines every 10th or 20th row, so it's quite easier to frog. Now you have to frog to the first stitch of that row, or just a particular row. And now you are going to put them on the circular needle. Pull, pull, and the stitch appears. And this is what you do. You put that on the needle. Right here you just see a plain stitch. I don't know if it's a knit or a purl right now. And here's where you see the one with the floater. So you put that back with the floater on. The knit stitch. What you can do too, to prevent the more that I drop more, is a knit below. This is where your stitch is with a working yarn. You do a knit below and you pull at it, and as you can see, it's with the floater. So in the stitch, just nice and gently, don't pull at it, otherwise this will probably drop even more. So you put it just back on the needle, and when it happens that you have a dropped stitch over here, you just continue doing this until you have all the stitches on your needle. Okay, this one I frogged a bit too much, but that is not that bad. The other side of your needle. And as you can see, you can continue doing that until you have all the stitches back on the needle. As you can see, there's always one stitch that is not knitted because the working yarn is not through the stitch like it is here. And just grab the pegs from the needle the same way, so when you put it back, you know which way you have to put it back on. I'm doing it from behind now, but of course you can do it from this way and this side too. It's just because of the camera. And try to grab the whole stitch and not that you are pulling through the stitch. Okay, and this is where you have to have only one. And now the putting back. We want to have it back the same way as it was before. This is where my scrap yarn comes in. This is my first peg. I'm putting it back from the side where the working yarn is because of the pulling. So these stitches won't be as loopy. This is my first bag. I'm checking it. It's not twisted, so I can put it back. Just pull at it, secure it, or hitch it somewhere. And as you can see, here are 2 stitches, and this is 1. And this is the purl one. So you just put it back and you check if it's not twisted. Now, in the beginning you have to check if it's not twisted, but in the end, if you always have put it back on the needle the same way, you already know how to put it back on the loom. It's also the same way. So 2 stitches over here. That was the yarn over, or the yarn in front on the loom. And you just continue doing it. Just see if you have the whole stitch and you put it back. Either you use a smaller hook. My circular needle is half of the yarn I'm using, because then I have space enough to put the stitches back on. So it's a perfect aid for loom knitting, a circular needle. And you can put it back on the way that suits you the best. So I'm only showing my way, but if you know another way that suits you better, as long as the stitches are put back on the right way. These are the one with 2, and you can also check, because you know every alternate one. So the purl, either the knits have the yarn in front or the purls have the yarn in front. Now, as you can see, this one is half the stitch, so you better check if you find the other half and you put it back. The one with 2, and either you use the circular needle to put it back on, or you put it on your hook. Okay, so it's put back, and just check all the knits have 1 stitch. Oops, and all my purls have a lot of stitches. Doesn't matter, it's real life at this point, taping life. Okay, I know what's happening. I just put back 2 stitches on a peg. So this is what I do. I'm putting them back on. This is 1 stitch, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Hey, I miss one. And certainly I miss one. Happily it's still there, otherwise I had to do the way I showed before. How to mend a drop stitch. And you can continue knitting now. Okay, it looks hard, but if you've done it this way, I'm certainly you will be pleased. And I always say frocking is a way you always can do after you have tried this one. Now, and because I know I did my pearls from the right, I know how to continue doing my project by knitting all the pearls and by knitting the next row all the knits. Actually, we're creating a knit stitch right now, and in this row all are knitted, all the pegs are knitted with a knit stitch. So hopefully I've shown you some tips and tricks how to read or unravel or frock and rip and adjust so you can continue doing your fisherman's rib, which is a very nice stitch for a lot of projects. Hope to see you next time. Bye bye.